It's been since 2018 that I was actually at Miami BTC. This doesn't look much like Miami. I guess this is what we get in the days of COVID. But this was probably one of my favorite conferences. And I went to over 35, I think, in 2018. It was different. It was the first time I'd been to a large conference for crypto, and it was passion. I mean, that's what I saw from everybody. Whether you were talking to a miner or a developer, heck, I met a couple of kids here on the floor, and they were arguing whether or not the leased mining space that they'd gotten in the cloud was better than the rig that he'd just paid for. And they were about 12 years old. Now, I come from video games, so I was sure that they'd have at least a couple of games that they enjoyed. Nope, they were miners. And it's just an anecdotal thing, but that was the kind of passion that I saw amongst everybody that I came to. I mean, the people who were announcing themselves for the first time to the world here and were on stage, and even the actual feel that it was in the hall, what was going on the exhibit floor, was, you could tell there was something special. And most of the people were here to try and change the world. Now, it could be argued that that was the year that Wall Street showed up and we had some distractions, but there was still an awful lot of people that were passionate about being out to change the world. Those are the people I want to meet. Those are the people I want to talk to today. People of purpose. We've been working on the blockchain that we're going to introduce pretty much for the first time today, told a few people, for 3.5 years. And that actual blockchain, the data grid blockchain, is that next thing that we think we need to move things forward. Now, I've been doing new venture for, 35 years. This is my 12th new venture. I've had a great run. I've had some real successes. And of course, like any startup, I've had some that didn't make it. But one thing I've learned is that it's really important when you're going to bring a new product to market that you understand the timing and be there at the right time, as well as the right place. And that right place, as far as the product goes, has to be easy to use. It has to be something that people can make part of their lives easily and not have to work at it. I think that's one of the things that we've got to get to with blockchain. To get the unblockchain blockchained, we've got to make it easier. I learned this actually when I was at Garage Games. It was one of the bigger startups that I got to be part of. We'd taken a AAA game engine from Tribes, and we'd taken the source code and we'd made it available. We controlled the head, but everybody had access to the source. And at that time, if you wanted to license a game engine, it was $1 million per title. And that actually kept most people from being able to make games if they wanted to. You had to build your own game engine from the ground up. 5 to 7 years of hard work if you were really good. And now we were able to bring that out and and we coined the term indie games. We coined the term indie developer. And we even launched Indie GamesCon in 2002. That was an exciting event. We had people from all over the planet come. It was in Eugene, Oregon. We got a convention center that was under construction, so that just the drywall had been up. So we were able to bring graph artists in, and they painted the place. We had film crews come in. It was a lot of fun. First time that I'd gotten to see people bring their games that they'd made using our engine and actually demonstrate them for other people to play. And it was probably the best games that we ever saw the entire time we were there. Some were like from an internal studio we had called Marble Blast that we did, and another one called Think Tanks that was a studio we later acquired from Bravetree. And then there was one I loved. It was called Orbs, and basically we're shooting these giant orbs at each other and trying to knock each other down, and go through an obstacle course or golf course type of a situation. But it was in another world, and it was quite fun. Because I usually won, so that was fun for me at least. And that was a moment in time where we were at the right time, at the right place, and we were actually creating a movement. It's kind of like when Hollywood owned all the movies all the cameras back in the 1950s. The only people who could make movies were the studios. So you had to work for the studio if you were going to make a movie. And when we started garage games. There were indie movies, indie film, and indie bands for music, but there wasn't anybody doing indie games. And that was exciting. But back around 2005, I was at speaking, going to be on stage with the vice president of Apple, talking about how they were doing great things with Garage Band, and here we were doing some amazing things with Garage Games. And they'd always been a sponsor of our conference. It was a great partnership. And I'm sitting there in a small, off the side of things, watching this new product demonstration. And I started to watch, and it was a game engine. And sure enough, they grabbed this piece of art, and they just drug it over and dropped it right into the scene graph. And I went, wait a second. At that time, trying to get art through the art pipeline into the game engine was like, pulling teeth. It was hard. And I looked at it. I got on the phone to our CEO, Josh Williams. He flew down that afternoon from Eugene to San Francisco, and he took a look at the demonstration. I looked at him and I said, either we do that or we're done. Well, I guess the story is we sold to Barry Diller of IAC for a reported $70 million, and the market cap for Unity I looked at yesterday was $41 billion. So ease of use. Even though we had better technology, better net code, we had a better scene graph, we could make AAA games when they couldn't even make a good mobile game. It was ease of use that won. And I think that's a real important lesson for us to take home as we go out to try and change the world with blockchain. So that's something we took to heart when we were looking at how we wanted to architect the data grid blockchain. And we've done all the things you'd expect. We've used a distributed proof of work with a proof of stake, and it's a hybrid because we believe that's necessary to keep the kind of security and be able to resist attack the way we think any really good currency is going to have attack in the future. And we've done 6 patents. We've really worked ourselves towards being able to create a new architecture that will both be able to scale and be able to have the kind of robustness and decentralization that's necessary. The governance is there. But actually, when we got to the point where we had all that done, and I should say, when we patented this, it was so that we could protect it for the future, for the community. There's a lot of very strong market interests in owning technology right now, and they'd rather control it than to have it be open source for everyone. And so we patented so that we would protect it against anybody else saying, "Oh no, that you can't do that. That's our idea." And as we worked on that, we came to the conclusion that there was still a real problem with the way smart contracts were being approached. And it was all about the transactions. And we knew that we needed to be able to deal with the transactions in a way that allowed us to get full scale. And we went back to some work that our CTO had done back in the day from Park Research. There was something called the first class object model. And it was used in OS 2, that's the operating system IBM had. And it was used actually by Steve Jobs on Next, and then Next actually got used on OS 10. And part of it, was even adopted by Microsoft for their Windows operating environment. The part that wouldn't get them in trouble with IBM for patent infringement. And so that actually is the DNA of almost every operating system you have today, whether it's your smartwatch or your phone or your computer. We took that same object-oriented blockchain or object-oriented operating system and brought it to the blockchain. So we're now deploying this against what is the largest network computer, and many could say, in the world, or will be. And we're being able to take advantage of that first-class object model. We call it the Extensible Blockchain Object Model, or XBOM. That is a very exciting technology. And we've just recently brought it out on Hyperledger, which we understand is a permission chain, not a decentralized one. But that way we can actually prove that technology to the world and show that we're going to be able to build this first-class object model blockchain operating system and have it run on the blockchain. Why is having a first-class object model working on the blockchain important? Well, first thing we're able to do is we're able to store assets directly in your account on the blockchain, not referenced in a smart contract or being part of a tokenization of an asset. The actual asset and the certifications that prove, like in the real world, that you own the car title or the real estate. All of those actual assets are stored. In addition, we're actually storing state on the blockchain, which means all state of what's going on is right there. We're actually putting all the code in the accounts on the blockchain. So all code is running live on the blockchain and can be inherited from other classes that allow that to happen. So we have a shared code base, shared namespace, and all your assets are on the blockchain. So why is that important? Because with the assets in your account and state being stored on the blockchain in your account, we're able to move your account from shard to shard and be able to get to full parallelization, meaning that we'll be able to, as resources are added to the network, continue to accelerate to the capacity of the internet in terms of bandwidth. And as we know, bandwidth on the internet just continues to increase. And so we won't have the same kind of gating factor for scaling that everybody else does. And that's a huge thing. Now, I want you to take a look at our white paper, dig in. If you've got questions, we're going to be hosting basically discussion areas over on our Discord server. You can find us at persaga.com and be able to get to all of our resources there. And I think that the important piece is when you're looking at what we're trying to do here, we're trying to make it much easier. Because all the code is running on the blockchain, we're going to be programming language agnostic. So you're going to be able to actually program whatever programming language you want. Through our class manager infrastructure, you're not going to have to worry so much about how the blockchain is handling your data. And you're going to be able to focus on building the right application fast and getting it to market quickly, and having a lot less limitations in terms of both the scale and the sophistication and complexity of the code. And that'll mean that we get easier to use and use cases that we couldn't currently handle brought to market. And that will hopefully blockchain the unblockchained. So one of the things that we looked at again when we were trying to make sure that we made this a user experience that was easy to get into and everybody could have a good experience, has to do not just with the speed and not with just the ease of use, not just with the security, but actually with the stability. Because one of the things we've found, and maybe it's just because we're old and not willing to spend our Ethereum when it's going up as fast as it is, or the Bitcoin that nobody's buying pizzas with anymore. We wanted a currency that actually was something that people used to transact with. So we've built a monetary policy that allows us to transition over a period of 8 to 10 years from being a deflationary coin into being an inflationary coin. And by doing that, we're able to stabilize and in our own algorithm figure out how to create a monetary policy that's going to create a stable currency. One of the tricks to that is because we do have state on the blockchain and we're actually running all the code there, we can know what the types of transactions are going on in every category. Not that we're going to have any problem with anonymity, but we're still going to be able to have those foundation classes that are being able to track that. So we have a digital GDP, something that allows us to be able to both burn and mint at a speed that's inherently accurate to the transactions that are going on the blockchain, which just means that we'll be able to say peg slightly under what any of the fiat currencies are, so we're always a slightly better currency. Currency wars, who knows how that'll work out. But I think being able to compete with any of the fiats is an important piece right now. And having that stability, it's something that has integrity to itself and isn't pegged to some externality, which, as we know, could go many different ways in terms of how the fiats are done. Having a basket of commodities is not necessarily the way to get true stability long term. So we've been working on that, and it's, again, I'm going to invite you right back over to read our white paper, discuss it with us on the Discord forums. We'd really like to hear from you what you think and how we might work together and collaborate to change the world. Thank you.